How to Move the Stars by Jacob Lemansky. Chapter 4. Italy. April 6th, 2013. Italy. Katie and I got up early to leave before anyone discovered us camping on the hillside. We were in an area where the mountains drop right to the sea, so we rode downhill to the water's edge, then turned towards Italy, just 2 miles farther down the road. We arrived to find the border facility abandoned. Once the European Union formed, there was no longer a need to keep the buildings operating. Now the place is occupied by a community of people who found free parking and never left. A dozen medium-sized RVs sat only a stone's throw from the sea. I can't blame them. The spot was beautiful. I've only ever had positive interactions with RV people, but there is a visceral chasm between our chosen style of travel. I ride a bike so that I can be outside in the world, while they bring a box and lock themselves inside. By midday, we reached the town of San Remo and decided to stay. We got a room, then went out for a walk on the cobblestone streets, past many public statues and ornate churches. We made our way to an open plaza with tourists and shops, and for the first time on this journey, I bought myself ice cream. I love eating ice cream when I'm bike touring, so I was surprised I've gone this far without finding any. There seemed to be no ice cream for sale in Spain, and the ice cream shops in France were all closed for the season. Hopefully there is more ice cream to come, but I don't actually know how prevalent it is in the world. I suppose that is something I'm about to find out. April 7th, 2013. Italian pizza. Katie and I left the hostel this morning and made our way along the crowded coast, past homes and condos, green parks, marinas full of large yachts, and stunning views of the sea. A bike path along an old railroad bed took us forward without a single hill, even tunneling through the mountains where they got in our way. The sky was blue and the weather was warm. Katie and I rode side by side, talking and feeling happy and close. All day long, the houses were built wherever the hills were gentle enough to hold them. This left only the steepest slopes for us to hang our hammocks, too steep even to push our bikes up. I figured a hotel would appear eventually, but a campground popped up first. The friendly host showed us some trees for our hammocks, and invited us to eat dinner at the campground restaurant. Once we were set up for the night, Katie and I walked to the empty dining hall for dinner. The chef and camp host came out to greet us. They asked about our bikes, and after telling them how far we had come, they offered to make us the largest pizza they could. What came out was a pizza and a half in an oblong shape too big to fit in a pizza box. This would be my first taste of Italian pizza. Of all the countries I expect to visit, I'm most excited about eating the food of Italy. I picked up my first slice. The crust was slightly charred by the wood-fired oven. There was only a light layer of sauce and hardly a shred of cheese. The meager toppings were a few large pieces of lunch meat and a single olive on every slice. I took a bite and chomped down on something hard. The olives still had pits in them. I couldn't imagine why they wouldn't take them out. It was as if they were hiding stones in the cheese. For my first Italian meal, I was rather disappointed, but my food tour is only just beginning, and I still have high hopes for what's ahead. April 8th, 2013. Colorful towns. As we rode along the coast today, Katie and I passed through 15 different towns in just 25 miles. I enjoy how colorful the towns have become. In France, the villages were white, the color of sand or gray concrete. Italy adds subdued orange and pink to the palette. The colors disperse across the towns such that a canvas of buildings on a distant hillside looks like an abstract depiction of a pastel sunrise. Late in the morning, we came to a place where the mountains met the sea, and sheer white cliffs plunged down to the water. To get past, the road cut into the cliffside, causing the land to hang out over the cars. In other places, the road simply tunneled through the mountain, or bridges built over the water. There was no shoulder on this narrow section of road, so Katie and I stayed as far to the right as possible. but we were also high above the water, and I was very aware of the airy drop only arm's length away on the other side of the railing. The situation was exasperated by all the passing cars pushing us towards the edge. I kept my eyes straight ahead, gripped my handlebars tight, and focused on my balance. After a few miles, the road became less harrowing, and we were back into another town. Katie, of course, was unfazed by the traffic, and seemed not to have any of the same worrying thoughts as me. Rain was falling this afternoon when we pulled into a cheap hotel. We were dripping wet, and on the busy coast there was little hope of finding a place to camp. Katie needed to work on her computer anyways, and I suppose I didn't mind being dry. For dinner, we walked a few blocks to a restaurant, and like Spain and France, I was handed a menu that I couldn't read. I chose an entree at random and was brought a plate of unidentifiable grilled meat. I took a bite, but the flavor wasn't obvious. The meat was lean and the bones were small. Katie took a bite as well, and we concluded I had ordered rabbit. The side of steamed carrots was probably his favorite meal. April 9th, 2013, Genoa. I've been seeing a highway that runs along the coast slightly inland from us. While our route follows the water's edge, the highway tunnels to the mountains and spans the valleys in dozens of places. I saw another of the towering bridges today. I always like looking at large infrastructure projects. They are the most expensive things built by a society and can be engineering marvels in their own right. Certainly, this mountain highway has been impressive. Katie and I arrived at another summer vacation area when we entered the town of Araz. A large marina protected 500 yachts, some over 100 feet long. The beach is wide and lined with restaurants and 3-star hotels. We stopped to order a pizza in a small restaurant. I was still trying to find the excellent Italian food I had been craving. What they brought me was a thin round crust with grape tomatoes, raw arugula, and a few shavings of Parmesan. No sauce, no melted cheese. I was dismayed. We ordered a second pizza with pepperoni, thinking it was Italian for pepperoni. But what we were served was topped with bell peppers. I was disappointed again. I couldn't understand why I was struggling to find good food in Italy. We made our way to Genoa this evening and found a hotel in a section of the city built before cars existed. The streets were so narrow that only pedestrians could enter. Genoa's history stretches back 2,500 years, placing it among the oldest cities in the world. Christopher Columbus lived in a house that still stands just a few blocks from our hotel. The cobblestone streets were well worn, and there seemed to be very little modern architecture. The character of the city is similar to others that I've been through in Spain and France. Their age and stylings give them a European aesthetic that is distinct from the United States cities that I am more familiar with. On our way back to the hotel, I realized there is a brothel across the street from where we are staying. The women standing in front were friendly and smiled at Katie and I as we passed. April 10th, 2013, Wild Pigs. Katie and I are now in the area where the Alps meet the Ligurian Sea. Looking north, I get glimpses of cold, snow-covered peaks. To the south, glistening warm water stretches to the horizon. The road ahead took us between the peaks and the sea. Those boundaries also pinched the population up against the water. All day long, one town turned into the next without the homes ever stopping. I was concerned that we wouldn't find a place to sleep, but as evening arrived, we were fortunate to be climbing a mountain into a forested park on the ridge. We left the main road following a crumbling single lane, which took us up the broad ridge of the mountain towards the summit. Where we reached the end of the road, a hiking trail appeared. Then we started pushing to get some distance between us and the neighborhood. Just as night caught up to us, we hung our hammocks with a pristine view. I can see the sparkling white and yellow lights of the coastline stretching for miles into the distance. The view is amazing, but I'm concerned about the wild pigs moving in the darkness around us, snuffing and grunting. I saw their prints in the mud as we hiked up here. They are big, strong animals, and I know they can be aggressive. possibly by being startled in the night by someone in a hammock. I'm worried about them finding us, but I'm also tired. So that I may rest tonight, I'm simply going to trust that the pigs will leave us alone. April 11th, 2013, Cinque Terre. I saw the wild pigs this morning. As Katie and I were packing up camp, a family of them moved through the forest. A few adults and a couple cute little ones. They stopped to look at us before quickly running into the brush. From where we camped, the road took us on a half-hour-long winding descent through the neighborhoods overlooking the sea. Eventually, we arrived at the water's edge in the town of Rapallo. A 500-year-old stone castle stood on a finger of land reaching out into the bay. We stopped at a beach to admire the view. Mountains plunged towards the sea, and in some places, waves crashed against the rocky cliffs. There's also a magnificent statue at the end of the beach. Standing 20 feet tall, the cast concrete was of a nude man straddling a cliff over the water. The legs pinched each side of the moss-covered rock as if it were a horse. The muscled figure was bent forward, straining beneath the weight of a balcony that reached from a restaurant out to the shoulders of the giant figure. The head of the statue was bowed so that I could see the face, but the motions were lost to the weathering long ago. In the afternoon, Katie and I bought train tickets to visit Cinque Terre, a collection of 5 villages tucked into steep valleys along the coast. They were settled over 900 years ago, perhaps because of the natural protection of the mountains. Most recently, they have become tourist destinations known for being picturesque. Tonight, we have a room in the easternmost village. We missed our train stop getting here and had to go to the next town, then come back. In the process, we were fined €50 for our confusion. Apparently, after buying the ticket, we had to get a stamp at the train station, then another stamp on the train. We didn't know about getting the first stamp, and when they came around on the train to check our ticket, even though we had a ticket, the man fined us on the spot. Katie and I were both very frustrated and felt taken advantage of to be punished because of their confusing system. Out of spite, once I leave Italy, I plan to never return in my life. I hope that was worth €50 to them. April 12th, 2013, more Cinque Terre. Katie and I toured around Cinque Terre a little more today. Each town is nestled into its own protective nook a couple miles from the next. We took the train back the way we came in yesterday and stopped at each village along the way. At every stop, there were long, steep flights of stairs that I needed to climb with my bike. I tightened my core and felt my whole body strain as I wrestled my heavy equipment upwards again and again. By the end of the day, I could feel my legs getting wobbly. The constricted villages of Cinque Terre only had enough space between buildings for walking. Each home was painted in its chosen shade of pink, soft yellow, or orange, and from afar, it looked like a flower patch on the sea. In the surrounding hills, crumbling terraces reached up to the ridgeline, the remnants of a once self-sufficient community. Small wooden fishing boats filled in along the edge of the water. I didn't see anyone using them. Perhaps they were props to enhance the quaint feel of the place. Certainly the townspeople seemed to be catching more tourists than fish. At the end of the day, we biked along a path following an old train line that tunneled through the steepest hills. We found a place to sleep next to the new train line, on a concrete pad behind the station. No more passenger trains will be coming through tonight, but noisy freight trains occasionally roll past. Our spot overlooks the sea, and I can hear waves lapping against the rocks just below us. Tonight will be my last night camping with Katie. Her trip is ending soon, and I'm feeling a little sad. We celebrated her journey with a bottle of wine, then we held each other close and watched as the crescent moon chased the sun over the horizon. I'm going to miss her. April 13th, 2013, Genoa again. Katie and I made our way west along the coast, back the way we just came. Her flight leaves in 3 days, and we need to get her packed into the airport. We started off this morning biking to a train station where we could take a ride to Genoa, where we stayed 4 days ago. To make things easier for ourselves, we even went back to the same hotel. The friendly man working at the front desk recognized us, and a couple of the same women were standing in front of the brothel across the street. I've been somewhere new for 2 months in a row. I like being somewhere familiar for a change. Katie and I arrived in the early afternoon and took a walk to explore the city. We found the Carlo Felice Theater and stepped inside. The left and right side of the room were constructed of a stone facade with fake windows that made the stage appear to be the center of a city street. From there, we walked to the harbor where we discovered a large 3-mast sailboat that looked like a relic from a different age. The wooden hull was lined with cannon doors, and a large Poseidon character with bulging muscles adorned the bow. We wandered until evening and made our way back to the hotel. Our gear is spread out across the room. Katie is in bed, and I'm about to join her. April 14th, 2013. Bike shop. The one thing I had to do today was to get Katie's bicycle into a box that she could take with her on the airplane. Bike shops usually have extra boxes. That's how the bikes arrive in the first place. So in the late morning, we took a walk to the nearest bicycle store. They didn't have any boxes, but the second place we went did. I took the biggest one and carried it awkwardly back to the hotel. I disassembled Katie's bike in the hotel lobby. The handlebars had to come off. I unscrewed the pedals from the crank arms, removed the front wheels, and took the seat post out of the frame. Taken apart like this, the bike slid into the box without much trouble. She'll use her 2 panniers as luggage to carry everything else. I finished taping the box closed, and with that, Katie was ready to go home. As the streetlights came on, Katie and I took a walk into the city to find dinner. I arrived in Italy craving bread, pasta, and pizza, with flavors so bold they were unimaginable to my American palate. What I found has been sorely disappointing, but tonight would be one of Katie and I's last meal, and I wanted the food to be special. We wandered, not knowing where to go, expecting to find many more restaurants than we did, and feeling quite hungry. I was getting a bit desperate when we finally came across a small restaurant, close to the water, tucked in under an old building of apartments. The restaurant was not fancy, but we really were struggling to find anywhere at all, and my stomach was growling. We sat down and I ordered a plate of spaghetti. All my hopes for an amazing Italian food experience were laid on that dish. I was a little nervous to see that the waitstaff and cooks were all Asian. I questioned if authentic Italian was really their specialty. When the food came out, I was given a bowl of boiled spaghetti with half a jar of thin sauce poured over top. I honestly felt crushed. I don't have expectations on this journey. My practice is to arrive and accept what is before me. This way, I will never be disappointed. I was relearning this lesson as I looked down at the wretched bowl of pasta. I was nearly in tears. Katie, seeing that I was about to cry, reached across the table and put her hand on mine. She asked, "Are you sad that I'm leaving?" The truth is, I wasn't thinking about her at all, but I also wasn't ready to admit I was crying over spaghetti. I pushed the bowl aside and looked at her with wet eyes. "Yes," I said. "That's exactly why I'm sad." April 15th, 2013. Taking the train. Katie and I walked to the train station this morning. She pushed my bike while I carried hers in its box. The awkward size and weight was difficult to manage. Katie grabbed my camera out of my handlebar bag and snapped a couple pictures of me from behind, capturing a moment when a woman walking towards me wasn't paying attention and ran into the front end of the bike box. The picture shows her holding her arm and turning back to scowl at me. The train took us about 100 miles along the coast, back past 3 of our previous camping spots. Katie and I sat next to each other, holding hands, looking out the windows at the mountains on one side and the sea on the other. The train took us nearly to the border of France, where we debarked in the town of Ventimiglia. We arrived late in the day as the sun was going down. I hauled the box bike another half-mile to the hotel. This is where we will spend our last night together. We laid on the bed and held each other close. I told Katie I love her, and she told me the same. April 16th, 2013. Saying goodbye to Katie. I met Katie at a climbing gym in Boulder. From across the room, I was captured by her beauty and walked straight over to say hello. She was new in town, and because we were both there on our bikes, I invited her to ride with me to get hamburgers. On the way, I took her past my house so that I could fix her squeaky chain and misaligned derailleur. She later said how much she liked that. Over dinner that night, I told her about my bike journey. The idea to bike around the world was still fresh, and I was a year away from leaving, but the idea inspired me. Since the beginning, this journey has been part of our relationship. The past 2 months have been fun and romantic as we've bicycled 1,600 miles across Europe, a great accomplishment that I feel has brought us closer than we ever have been. But I also am not ready to stop, nor does Katie want me to. The most important thing to me is that I see this journey through to the end, and she understands that. We've agreed to stay in touch and see what happens. If I'm to reach the Pacific, I don't expect to see Katie for at least 6 months. I'm not even sure how often I will be able to find Wi-Fi to call her. I told her that I will write an email every night. She'll be my muse, inspiring me from afar and buoying my heart in all the moments when I feel alone. I will tell her my story and feel her close to me as I do. We said goodbye on the train platform. I told her I loved her, and she said she loved me too. We embraced one last time, then she stepped aboard on her way to the Nice airport, then back to Colorado. I stood on the empty platform, watching as the train rolled out of sight. I felt alone. I was both sad she was gone and excited for what lay ahead. By the afternoon, I had taken the train back to the furthest place I had bicycled. From there, I turned inland, leaving the Mediterranean coast behind to climb towards the distant snow-capped peaks. The towns on the coast were nice, but I'm glad to be away from them. Only a half day into the mountains, and my surroundings are quieter and less populated, with many more places to camp. Tonight, I'm in my hammock between 2 trees growing on a terrace full of grapevines. After dark, I always hear dogs barking in the distance, but tonight, I heard a new animal making a terrible sound. A short, incredibly loud bark, both guttural and harsh, that reverberated across the hills. Whenever I hear it, I feel my spine tingle with fear. I have no idea what creature makes such a sound. Rarely in my life have I camped alone, and there is a strength in numbers feeling that I am missing now that Katie is gone. Apparently, she was the source of my bravery, and without her, I've lost my incentive. I don't need to be brave anymore, not for myself. Now I can just be scared. April 17th, 2013. Over the mountain. For the past 35 days, I've been following the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. I've fallen asleep to the gentle sound of the sea's lapping waves, watched the rising sun glitter on the water, and endured the storms rolling in over the land. This morning, when I finished climbing to the ridge, I took one last look at the blue water. The sea was beautiful, as was always true. Then I rolled over the crest of the hill, and the Mediterranean Sea was officially behind me. As I started down the mountain, I passed a spring bubbling out of the ground, the beginning of a creek so small I could step from one side to the other. The road followed the water, and through the rest of the day, I watched the tiny stream join others and grow into a fast-moving river 100 meters wide. I've heard of this phenomenon expressed as a metaphor. It takes many streams to form a great river, but never experienced the phrase so literally. I stopped in the trees along the riverbank to rest and eat lunch. The spot was beautiful, and pointedly, I felt Katie's absence. No one was there to enjoy the view with me, and I missed her. At the same time, I felt good to be on my own, completely unburdened by the needs or schedule of another. I had the profound freedom to move at exactly my own pace, never in a rush, never waiting, fast enough that the world changes around me, slow enough to watch. Not having to consider anyone else also means that I am alone. Without Katie to talk to, I got out my guitar for the first time. Using a chord chart I brought to help me learn, I placed each finger on each string, then strummed. Just down at first, then up and down. I tried another chord, but holding the strings was frustratingly difficult. My hand felt uncoordinated, and I quickly gave up. This evening, to get away from the road, I followed a tractor path that took me past the town soccer field, then out into the farmland near a river. My hammock is hanging in a strip of trees between fields of 6-inch tall wheat. I've got a good view of the sky, and a warm breeze is washing over me. I expect I'll sleep well tonight. April 18th, 2013. Postcard. I didn't sleep well. Soon after dark, pigs began grunting and running through the nearby forest, while ornery crows in the trees above me screeched into the darkness. Worst of all, long trains rumbled past every few hours. I've considered earplugs, but I don't want to block out the sound of wild animals getting close or footsteps in the dark. This morning, I finished rolling down from the mountains, then quickly left them behind. I pedaled into a vast plain of farmland stretching out in every direction. The roads were flat and quiet. Sprouting crops poked through the damp soil. Every 5 miles, I passed through a town just large enough to have a small store and a church. The day was warming quickly, and to block my neck from the pounding sun, I tied a yellow bandana onto the back of my helmet, then used safety pins to fasten the edges to my chin strap. The bandana blows behind me like a tiny cape. It's now part of my look. By noon, the temperature was 90 degrees, and my water was running low. I found a municipal building and walked inside. A man and a woman were there doing paperwork. Both stood up to greet me and shake my sweaty hand. I spoke to the woman. She was young, and she said she learned English in high school. Neither of them had ever met a tourist in their town. While we talked, they filled my water and shared cookies with me. They also gave me a dusty postcard with a picture of the town church and a stamp to mail it. I wrote a quick hello to Katie and told her I was making friends. The 2 workers followed me outside to see my bike, and as I prepared to go, the young woman complimented the yellow bandana pinned to my helmet. I knew it was a good look. The workers were so friendly. I waved goodbye as I pedaled away, and they waved back. I stopped to camp along a canal with a bike path. I didn't want to hang my hammock before dark, so I sat near the water and waited for the sun to set. A British couple on touring bicycles came through. Their trip began in London a month ago, and they were on their way to Turkey, then to China. They invited me to join them on the ride to the next town, but I declined. Our destination is the same, but we are going different directions. I wish them good luck, and they told me the same. I wonder if they'll get all the way to China. I wonder if I will. April 19th, 2013, Verona. I woke up next to the bike path with the red sun rising through a low mist. I quickly packed my things before anyone came by and pedaled into the warm morning light. Soon I arrived in Verona, where Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet takes place. The centerpiece of the city was a 2,000-year-old arena. That the building still stands is a testament to the ancient craftsmanship. Inside, an oval pitch was ringed by 40 rows of seating, enough for 20,000 people. The stadium's exterior consisted of 2 tiers of magnificent stone arches reaching to the height of 45 feet. I thought of all the people who, for millennia, gathered right there. The grand opening would have happened 100 generations ago. Now, and for the past century, the stage has been used for opera. I left town biking into another long stretch of farm fields. To busy my mind, I thought about how to better protect my guitar. I had the idea to build a case using a thin piece of hard, flexible plastic rolled into a tube and wrapped with packaging tape to keep the shape. The design would be simple to make, but that all hinged on finding the exact piece of plastic I needed. I imagined the right material must exist, though never in my life have I seen it for sale. 3 minutes after coming up with my plan, a hardware store appeared on the left side of the road, and I went inside to try my luck. The shop was pretty standard for a small town, with a bit of everything, including a large roll of flexible plastic sold by the meter. The timing was perfect, and miraculously, the material was precisely what I needed. The good luck was uncanny. I likely circled the entire earth without passing another store where that type of plastic is sold. The clerk came outside to watch me build the guitar tube and fasten what I made on top of my bike rack. He gave me a thumbs up as I pedaled away. This evening, I found a quiet spot near a road to set up my hammock. My foot was hurting, so I was glad to be done. I took off my shoe to find a weeping sore between two of my toes. I opened my small medical kit and was immediately struck by how little I knew about first aid. I decided to use antibacterial gel, but accidentally used a moisture barrier cream. Realizing my mistake, I put the gel on top, but now I think the first layer is preventing the second layer from being useful. I'm going to leave my sock off tonight and hope the problem takes care of itself. Prior to leaving, I never seriously considered the possibility of getting hurt. I joked that if I have to give myself stitches, I hope I won't need to do it left-handed. In reality, that wouldn't matter because I never did look up how to stitch a cut in the first place. As I looked at my toe, I had to admit that embarking without any medical training was an oversight. To heal, I'm left to trust the innate wisdom of my body. A powerful sentiment to surrender to. April 20th, 2013. Bike race. I packed up my hammock early. Fishermen were arriving with the dawn. I didn't want them to be suspicious of me. I never get permission to set up to sleep for the night, and I don't know the local culture well enough to guess how people might react if they find me. So unless I'm on the road, the one place I know I'm allowed to be, I try not to let anyone see me. I had been biking for 2 hours when a local cycling race passed me going the other direction. The group of 40 men wore spandex and rode close together. I was surprised when the first thought that came to me was how nice it would be to have the company of other riders. Perhaps I'm lonelier without Katie than I realize. I pedaled east through fertile farmland and small communities. The land to the south was flat as far as I could see. To the north, snow-capped Alps touched the sky. In one spectacular view, a cirque of 5 jagged peaks sloped steeply to a glacier below. I watched the feature approaching, then I could look straight into the valley, and a few hours later, the peaks disappeared over the horizon behind me. This evening, I set up my hammock on the bank of the Tagliamento River. The milky blue water flows from the thawing Alps to the Adriatic Sea. The riverbed is an impressive half-mile-wide scar of fist-sized gravel, but the water flows in only a few channels, one of which is quite close to me. The sound of the gentle current is in my ears tonight.